everybody, this is Maddie from Red Letter Project, and we are currently here in Honduras on our first international Red Letter, I guess, mission trip, kind of. It's like more of a scouting trip, I guess, but I'm here with Gracie Murphree of the Heart of Christ Justice Project, and she has been here for over 2 decades, right?
Right at 2 decades.
Right at 2 decades, and the work she does here is incredible, and I wanted to share it with you because it is so incredibly important to me, Mom, and our entire team at Red Letter. And I really just wanted to start off by saying thank you for having us. We've been here for about 5 days, and we've kind of gotten God's perfect timing has allowed us to see some of the work that you do on a very intimate level, and it's been incredible. If you wouldn't mind starting maybe just a quick introduction of who you are and maybe a little bit about the ministry and just the main important points.
Okay, well, I'm Gracie Murphree. My husband and I are the founders of HOC Justice Project, and we've been here 20 years in Honduras. We work in biblical justice. There's a difference between social justice and biblical justice. Social justice is where man's laws and rules and determinations of what's right and wrong falls into the mix and can cause a great mess. But biblical justice is based on God's word. And in the Old Testament, in Hebrew, there are words about justice, mishpat and zedek, and it talks about living justly, living rightly, and how we treat the most vulnerable in our communities. Our ministry is a biblical justice ministry. We work with everyone from the Supreme Court, the President, the First Lady, the National Police, investigators, prosecutors, human rights, United Nations on projects, the CSEC, which is the National Sex Trafficking Prevention Program Institution, child welfare, all the way down to teachers and pastors and churches and missionaries. The goal is we actually have 2 different parts. One is hands-on work where there's rescue care, redemption, empowerment of justice in actual cases of victims of violence, vulnerable groups, anyone who requires, according to the United Nations, a special protection under the law. We work in actual hands-on care. We did that for years, worked inside the police. I was Chief of Special Crimes in Honduras, with police under my command, working 600 cases a year. In a country where the United Nations says 94 to 96% impunity, with a 30% reporting rate, we had over 90% reporting rate with 75 to 85% conviction rate in our cases. We've had refuge for victims of violence. We've been leaders in this nation, in this work, and it's about raising up leaders. And so the other part of our ministry is prevention, intervention, and duplication. So we teach prevention and intervention. We go into the schools, classroom by classroom, from kindergarten to 12th grade, and we teach all of the students about the prevention and intervention of violence. We preach biblical justice. We talk about the Word of God while we're in the classrooms. We do all of the parents, we do all the teachers, we do the leaders in the communities, we work with the mayors, the Office of the Woman, media. We work with all of the local and we work with national media here. We just, she's their witness, national media, the #1 news station came and interviewed us on Thursday in the middle of an event that we were doing.
Right.
And you know, we work with pastors. We're focusing on pastors to strengthen the communities and strengthen the churches, because if we want to make change in our communities, it's not the government. The government is actually absolutely incapable of fixing the problems in our society because of politics and just the mess that all comes along with government. And that was never God's plan. God's plan has always been us, God's children, being the people who bring transformation and change to communities. So we're working on focusing on raising up leaders who will raise up leaders who will raise up leaders, so we can have leaders in all the communities doing the same work, duplicating the work, working with you guys to help strengthen you guys in your work now.
Right.
And, you know.
And remind me, I can't remember, when you were in your prime working for the police, how many cases were you dealing with per year? Domestic violence?
Domestic violence, family violence, domestic and family violence, child abuse, child sexual abuse, child neglect, kidnapping, rape, torture, murder, trafficking, anything that involved a vulnerable group, any crime against the vulnerable group. We're in over 600 cases.
And what you did with that was, not only was she on the ground working to working through those cases, but you created a structure that you can use in other areas of the world as well. So you're planning on scaling this to an international level, right?
Right. We've been doing it on a national level for years, and we've even started years ago going to Cambodia, going to Mexico. COVID shut us down from Cuba, Colombia, and Peru, but it's, you know, we don't need people to have to reinvent the wheel all the time. You know, they go and they get a dream, they do it. Let's get together with people who have knowledge and experience, and let's share that experience. There is more suffering than we could ever respond to. So there's no reason for any competition. And the goal is to put the information, the training in the hands of others. As we were talking earlier, I said, if it was just me doing all these trainings and doing all this work, we probably would have done trainings with 1,200 people. But because I've raised up leaders under me who are now doing a major part of it, we had face-to-face almost 8,000 people last year.
Right. Yeah, so she has an amazing ministry here. We came down here to really just like get a feel for the situation down here, get to know the area a little bit, get to know like really what their ministry was doing, because you know, you can read about things, but until you actually come down and meet the people, it's a little bit different. So we started off the week with actually getting to experience some of the trainings that you host at local schools and for leaders in the community. So could you just give like a kind of a brief recap of what you talked to the children about earlier this week?
So the first day that they were here, we had an event from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1, which ended with lunch, which was a program with the Department of Education and the Department of Health and the Mayor's Office and the Office of the Woman in a community called Guaymaca. And we spoke to leader students from 3 high schools. And we basically talked about called to serve, about how they're called to serve and how they are the future of their country. We talked on a little bit on domestic and family violence, and we touched on the different themes, but when I went with one thought of what we were doing and got there and found out it was actually a little bit different. And that's how things go, you gotta be flexible. But we had actually already trained all of these students in their classrooms in the last year. So I was actually able to focus on talking to them about being leaders in their community and being the change in the future of this community.
Well, and I really kind of want to also highlight remember the little girl that came up to you afterwards? So it was super cool, especially because I love, back home in the U.S., I love teaching high school age students, because I think that is such an important and critical time period in somebody's life. You're better at telling the story than I am, but basically this little girl came up to you afterwards and was like, I want to be a lion, I want to go be a courageous leader, and I don't even know how old she was, but...
She was the tiniest person in the room.
She was so small.
and yeah, because one of the things I was telling them is that you decide, tú decides. Are you going to be a champion for your community? I said, you have 3 options. You can be a delinquent, you can be somebody who's not effective at all, or you can be a champion for your community. And I would like get in their faces, tú decides, tú decides. I'm looking for leaders, I'm looking for champions, I'm looking for the lions, you know, who are gonna fight for their community and bring change. And we were sitting with the director of education and some other leaders and having lunch, and she comes up to me on my shoulder and she whispers, she says, quiero ser leona. I want to be a lion. And I looked at her, and she's already texted me like 3 times.
Yeah. So it's really cool being able to see that. And then the second day, we actually...
Oh, that's afternoon, the first day.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, we were actually able to sit in on a meeting with some of the big local authorities and actually watch you interact with them and basically tell you what you've been doing for the last month. So could you kind of give a brief recap of what that meeting was about and what you were pitching to them?
The Minister of Security has what's called the National Security Council, and they have them in each county. Each county is where the local governments are. And so we serve on the board for 2 counties. And so all of the leaders of the community, director of education, the judges, the prosecutors, the investigators, everybody who is a leader in that community is invited to that table. We meet every month, and at the beginning of the year, we give a plan of what we're going to do in that community to combat violence in the community, bring more security in the community. And so basically the meeting is where we meet, we discuss problems, we talk about how we're proceeding. We're near the end of the year now for this group, so it was more giving reports.
Yeah.
But there was a few heavy conversations, and in the meeting.
Yeah, and, the timing of it we didn't plan for that to happen. It's just that's when the meeting fell.
You changed 2 months ahead her time here. None of these events and things were scheduled 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the council meets the third Thursday, and they schedule it the fourth Thursday. Because even that very same day, while we were with the teenagers, my educator was in Toowoomba with the council in Toowoomba.
Right. So it was like God's timing. And then the second day, we were also able to see some really important meetings. And that was really interesting. I feel like that's really good exposure because that was a different group of people we were talking to, right? Who all was in the room then?
Okay, so on our way, we stopped at a community because we're bringing what we've been doing these last 2 years in the 2 communities we've been working in to this third community next year. And we're actually training all of the leaders, 50 to 100 leaders in that community on September 20th. And so I wanted to check in with the person who's organizing that, show you guys the community, give you a chance to see how important it is working and collaborating. And then we went to another community, a fourth community, where we met with the vice mayor, 3 pastors, the office of the woman. There were a lot of other people who couldn't come, but presenting to them what we're doing here so that we can, because we're planning for 2025. And we're not waiting until January to start.
Yeah.
So everything just sort of fell in those 2 days. All these meetings, I'm like, all of a sudden, our schedule got turned around.
In the most perfect way ever.
And it was
though.
amazing.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, being able to see the back end work of what actually goes on behind these mission projects, like I think a lot of times you watch a YouTube video and you see it's like, oh, somebody's passing something out or whatever, but you don't see the efforts that are put in to actually make these connections that allows the work to happen. And that's why I wanted to share it. Some of the stories that you shared with us throughout the week between you and your husband, and all the crazy things that you've seen and done over the years, all the danger, all the risk, all the just the work that has to be done on the ground. I know you can read more about that in your book, right? So maybe if you could share a little bit about your book and what that's about.
I didn't think about pulling the book out, but it's right there. Journey to Justice, Finding God and Destiny in Darkness. It is available on Amazon. 10% of my proceeds of the book goes to the support of the ministry.
Give us an overview, like kind of what the book talks about and what they can expect to read.
Journey to Justice is the title is it's a journey that we're on in learning how to bring justice and live justice and teach others to do the same. Really, God needs to use us to go into the darkness and pull out those who are suffering and bring them into the light. We need to be all find our calling and purpose and what part that we're involved in that. But God loves to use the broken, and that's actually a theme in it, and that we all have a call to justice. So the story is actually about how God made all of this happen here. And it talks about the good things, it talks about the crazy things,
The rescues.
it talks about the rescues, it talks about the missions. And when we say missions, I'm not saying mission like as a missionary.
Yeah.
You know,
Operations.
you know, how do I want to say this? We are all called to go into the darkness. We are all called for God to use us in some way, shape, or form to be the hope in dark areas. And my goal, my dream, the things that God is doing is I want to teach as many people as I can how they can be used by God, how they can walk fully in the purpose that God has for them. Nobody's exempt. It's not an option. Micah 6:8 says, and what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. So doing justice is not an option.
And that kind of leads me to another point. People that I've met throughout the years, they always ask, like, okay, well, I do want to get involved. I might not feel like I have the background to do that. How do I get trained to actually participate in fixing these problems in my community? And that brings me to like your YouTube page where you have hundreds of videos on domestic violence, child abuse, elderly neglect, human trafficking,
abuse,
like sexual abuse, like every
English and Spanish.
Yeah, any topic in relation to like violence for the most part is on your YouTube page, publicly available, and you're also coming out with some other resources to help people learn how to better help their community, right? Because God doesn't require a resume; He requires willpower.
That's what all He requires is your yes. He will call you, enable you, empower you, and give you everything. With the 20 years of experience that we've had here, One of the visions that we have is to create a biblical justice academy in which we're duplicating, we're raising up leaders and duplicating, allowing other, I can't go everywhere, but I can raise up people who can go other places. And so on the YouTube channel and the Instagram, we have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, but yeah, so there are things there that you can, and please, hit the follow, subscribe. Every Monday and Wednesday right now we have coming out in Spanish. We did have Tuesday and Thursday in English, but I'm doing other things right now in preparations for next year. So I'll put a pause. We're almost done with the whole series and the stuff that's going to stay there on the prevention and intervention stuff.
Yeah.
The academy will deal with the duplication. We're going to start training internationally. We're going to be doing online stuff, and that's all in development right now.
Yeah.
The logistics and how we're going to do it. We have the experience and we have the materials.
Yeah.
And it's just how we're going to put it together so that we can train others.
So this is just something that I truly believe that you do not have to have any sort of background in police work, military work, dealing with domestic. You don't have to have any sort of background in this to have a heart for it and to learn more about it.
1 in 3 women worldwide are victims of violence. 1 in 10 children, according to the WHO, suffer violence every single year worldwide. So how many women are in your church? How many children are in your church? How many women are at your work? There might be a woman sitting next to you in church who is suffering violence. There may be a teenager who's in your church sitting next to you suffering violence, thinking about suicide, right?
Yeah.
And they're sitting there waiting for somebody to do something, somebody to reach out to them. And if we're going to be the church, then we need to be the answer. We need to be the ones that God uses. How many women in your church are victims of violence? Where's the trauma care? Where's the rescue? Where's the helping men be stronger, women be stronger, marriages be stronger, youth be stronger? Where are we? How are we raising up leaders to have a team of people who, when somebody in the church is abused, they say, oh, I got raped last night. Guy took me out on a date and he raped me and I'm so ashamed and I don't know where to go, but there's this lady at our church, she knows all about it. I'm going to go talk to her. That's how you can be the answer. That's how you can do justice. So I mean, it's bringing it down to the practical in our everyday lives, and it's not all about victims and courts and police and stuff. It's about how we live, how we treat the vulnerable, the invisible. Who did Jesus spend his time with? And so I mean, I wanted to just kind of share that because that's how you can do it. And I want to offer you that if we can help you with trainings with your people and your community, we'll do them.
We appreciate that.
And because we're working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you keep saying, it's like it spreads and it scales and it goes from your little town of Honduras to the national level to all of a sudden now we're reaching like the international level. And I think that's what God gives us purpose for. It's like he gave you a vision a long time ago. You're leading out that vision, and now you can pass that vision off to other people who can continue it for years to come. So you can reach Gracie through Instagram, YouTube, Threads,
everything
except for TikTok.
And
then you can definitely pick up her book on Amazon, and I can just testify that this work that she's doing in Honduras is incredible. And if you can support her, I know we will be supporting her formally through Red Letter and our Red Letter events, our women's events. Anything we can do, you can contribute that way, or you can reach out to her directly because this is something that is definitely worth fighting for.